There is a specific millisecond, a fraction of a heartbeat, where you lose your freedom. It happens before you shout. It happens before you clench your fist. It happens before you even formulate the perfect biting insult in your mind. It is that sudden spike in temperature, the tightening of the chest, the chemical flood that washes over the prefrontal cortex, drowning out reason and replacing it with a singular, desperate demand. This is wrong. I must fix this. I must destroy this. We call this anger. And in our modern culture, we often confuse it with strength. We mistake the volume of our outrage for the validity of our character. We believe that by getting angry, we are asserting our boundaries, defending our honor, or punishing the incompetent. But look closer at that sensation. When that heat rises, you are not expanding. You are contracting. You are not taking control. You are being hijacked. In that precise moment, the person who insulted you, the driver who cut you off, or the system that failed you has achieved something terrifying. They have reached inside your mind, bypassed your logic, and pulled a lever that dictates your biochemistry. The ancient Stoics had a grim realization about this dynamic, one that modern psychology has only confirmed. They understood that the moment you get angry, the conflict is effectively over. Not because you are wrong, and not because you are weak, but because you have just handed the keys to your tranquility to someone else. You have made your internal state dependent on an external event. You think you are the judge slamming the gavel, but in reality, you are the prisoner rattling the bars of a cage you built yourself. You have already lost. We need to dismantle the way we view this emotion. We are told that anger is a tool. We are told it is the fuel of justice. And perhaps in the rare existential threats of history, it was a necessary survival mechanism, the fight in the fight or flight response. But you are not fighting a saber-toothed tiger. You are fighting an email from a passive-aggressive colleague. You are fighting a difference of opinion. You are fighting the chaotic, indifferent nature of reality itself. The Stoic philosopher Seneca famously described anger not as a useful weapon, but as a temporary madness. He argued that other vices affect our judgment, but anger affects our sanity. It creates a hallucination where the slight against us feels like a catastrophe that threatens our very existence. Psychologically, this is known as ego threat. The brain perceives an attack on your identity as an attack on your body. It mobilizes resources to defend the self. But here is the shift. The Stoic does not view the self as something that can be injured by words or events. If your fortress is built of stone, you do not panic when a rose hit the wall. You only panic if your fortress is built of glass. Anger, therefore, is a confession. It is an admission that you are fragile. It is the loud cracking sound of your own expectations breaking against the hard rock of reality. To understand why anger is a loss, we must look away from the person who made us mad and look at the machinery of our own minds. We must understand the transfer of sovereignty. Imagine you are a king or a queen of a vast inner territory. Your thoughts, your peace, your focus, this is your kingdom. Now imagine a stranger walks up to your city gates and throws a rock. If you immediately open the gates, run out, and start screaming at the stranger, you have changed the hierarchy. You have decided that the stranger's action is more important than your order. You have elevated a peasant or a fool to the status of a dictator. Epictetus, the slave-turned-philosopher, put it brutally. If a person gave away your body to some passerby, you'd be furious. Yet you hand over your mind to anyone who comes along, so they may abuse you, leaving it disturbed and troubled. Have you no shame in that? This is the transfer of sovereignty. When you get angry at a person, you are tethering your emotional stability to their behavior. You are saying, I can only be okay if you act the way I want you to act. Since you cannot control others, you have just signed a contract for perpetual misery. Psychologically, this is an external locus of control. You are outsourcing your regulation. The angry man thinks he is dominating the room, but he is actually the most dependent person in it. He needs the world to align with his wishes to function. The moment the world deviates, he collapses into rage. The strong man requires nothing from the external world to maintain his internal footing. That is the quiet power of autonomy. Why does the anger happen? What is the spark? It is almost always a collision between reality and a word that does not exist in nature, the word should. They should have respected me. Traffic should be moving. This should be fair. This is the cognitive distortion of entitlement. We walk around with a script in our heads of how the universe ought to play out. When the universe, which is vast, complex, and indifferent, deviates from our script, we feel a violation. We interpret this violation as a personal attack. But the Stoic looks at the world through the lens of logos, cause and effect. The rude person is rude because of their upbringing, their trauma, or their ignorance. The traffic is bad because of urban density and an accident 3 miles ahead. These things are not happening to you. They are just happening. When you get angry, you are screaming at the rain for being wet. You are demanding that reality stop being reality. This is why anger is a loss, because it is a rejection of the truth. You are fighting a war against the inevitable. To lose your temper is to prove that you have not yet accepted the nature of the world you live in. You are still expecting the world to be your mother, catering to your comfort, rather than a chaotic system of variables. Let's look at the cost. There is a common fantasy that our anger punishes the other person. We think that by holding on to a grudge or by exploding in a rage, we are teaching them a lesson. We are holding them accountable. But observe the physiology. Who is feeling the cortisol spike you? Who is losing sleep you? Who is trembling you? Who is likely to say something regretful that damages their own reputation? You. Seneca wrote, "Anger is an acid that can do more harm to the vessel in which it is stored than to anything on which it is poured." When you allow yourself to be provoked, you are drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. From a neurological standpoint, anger inhibits the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for long-term planning, empathy, and logic. You literally become less intelligent when you are angry. Your IQ drops. Your ability to solve the problem vanishes, replaced by the primitive urge to destroy the problem. And here is the cruel irony. Reaction is the fuel of the antagonist. If someone is trying to provoke you, your anger is their reward. It validates that they matter. It proves that they have the power to disrupt you. By reacting, you are feeding the very behavior you wish to extinguish. Silence, on the other hand, true detached silence is terrifying to the chaotic mind. It is a mirror. When you refuse to get angry, you force the other person to sit alone with their own behavior. You do not absorb their chaos. You let it bounce off your shield and return to them. We must be clear about what this means. This is not a call to be a doormat. This is not about passivity. It is about precision. You can address an injustice without losing your mind. You can fire an incompetent employee and a toxic relationship, or defend yourself in a physical altercation without the blinding heat of rage. In fact, you will do all of these things better and more dangerously if you are cold. But the moment the heat rises, the moment you feel that desperate need to prove you are right, the moment your voice cracks and your pulse thrashes, you have stepped into the trap. You have forgotten who you are. You have forgotten that your only true possession is your own reasoned choice. So the next time the world conspires to irritate you, and it will, perhaps today, perhaps in the comment section of this video, pay attention to the flare. Watch it rise, acknowledge it, and then ask yourself, am I the master of this house? Or am I just waiting for a stranger to walk by and tell me how to feel? The victory isn't in silencing them. The victory is in the silence within you.